You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode number 172, we'll let you know what's been going down over the past week in Overwatch, Overwatch Esports, take a look at some of the hottest community topics from this past week, and look ahead to Stage 4, Week 3 of the Overwatch League. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just take a quick moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar, and Ed, what a week it has been. We've kind of been having this adjustment period in the Overwatch League as teams try to sort out whether or not they can actually run Orisa Mei Reaper comps. And then if they can't, then they just plummet, and there's a lot of like shakiness, a lot of teams just trying to see if they're even going to be good in this meta. Teams that are suddenly looking like the best team in the league, even though for the majority of the season they looked fairly mediocre. So up is down, left is right, and I don't know what to think anymore. It's one of those weeks.
I mean, by pure science, the Washington Justice are the best team in the Overwatch League. Prove me wrong.
It's weird that we're kind of in a state where, right now, at least this stage, when there's no stage playoffs, the top two seeds would be Atlanta Reign and Washington Justice.
Yep. And the world does not know what to do with itself. It was crazy week. Like we talked about this yesterday about like pick'ems this week, and everyone's just like, I don't even know at this point. Like the Spark are taking a giant crap on the league, and are like the second, third worst team. We thought the Florida Mayhem were the worst team, and then they win. Justice go from like the worst of the worst to undefeated and 4-0 Vancouver.
Right.
For some godforsaken reason, they were able to do that. It's just been a crazy, crazy week of Overwatch, and I think we're probably going to see some more normal, like, not comps, but like more normal, like who's going to beat who's the top teams, who's the bottom teams.
I don't even know what normal is anymore.
And here's the crazy thing is, we only have this meta for 3 more weeks. Because then the new patch comes out for the playoffs, and that's a massive patch. And then we'll probably end up getting a different meta. So, like, get it while you can, because it's probably going to go away. And something new. Like, obviously, we'll still have the 2-2-2, but we'll get a new meta. We might not see D.Va really at all. I mean, Baguette might come into play more because she can be an actual healer and not someone that you just bring in to try and stun a Haxel's Genji. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week, but I don't even know what's going to happen. Like, it's insane. So it's a good time to be an Overwatch fan. You saw the viewership up this past week, which is probably due to the 2-2-2 roll-lock kind of being a thing now.
I mean, there was also something else that kind of aligns with the viewership spike. To a degree, but yeah, a lot of people are excited for 2-2-2. And with how much, like, the level of play has evened out, it's been a pretty exciting time for everyone, or a very nauseating time, depending on, what team you're a fan of, because, you got a couple of teams out there that, like, find something that worked the first week, and then they're like, okay, everyone's playing Mei Reaper, okay, we're gonna go to that, and then they just kind of shit the bed, so to speak, trying to run mirror comps, and then, like, just kind of fall apart against a team like Washington. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's jump into the news for this week. So first up, we do have an update that was on the PTR that added all of the Sigma cosmetics to the public test realm. So we got our first look at Sigma for his skins, the emotes, sprays, highlight intros, all of that good stuff. And Sigma is set to launch with 10 skins. I know there's 4 rare, he's got 2 epic ones, as well as 4 legendaries. Now, right out of the gate, the first thing that people notice is, hey, one of these actually has footwear.
And it's the only viable skin that you can ever wear with Sigma.
Yep. It is like... the epic skin, the Talon skin. So, looking at the legendary skins, he has the Asylum one. He has the Subject Sigma, which is basically the one that we see in the origin story when he's broken out of the facility by the Talon agents. There's also 2 that are pretty similar. There's like an Oracle one as well as a Prophet one that kind of like paint him in like this third eye sort of getup where like he can basically like see without eyes essentially, which I thought was pretty interesting. But I know there's been a little bit of discussion on like the Asylum one and just like the way that they kind of like tackled mental health. I do like the Hannibal Lecter-esque mask with that particular skin. So, like, if I'm not going to use the Talon one, that would probably be my go-to in particular. But I have to say, like, outside of that, I was not really excited about most of the emotes or intros. Like, for one of the emotes that there is like a relaxation one, where he's using, God, I'm blanking on the ability, but, like, he's creating, like, the boulders, and then he's, like, laying down on the rocks. I'm like, how can that even be comfortable, for one?
And then just putting his bare feet right in your face.
Yeah, that too.
I don't know. Spider says that the relaxation emote is the best in-game. I tend to disagree with you because you are 100% wrong. And you are a psychopath for liking that.
And to that point, that must mean that the relaxation victory pose would also be the best in the game.
Yes, and by default, it has to be. So, Spider, you just painted yourself into a corner. One thing you will not be able to unsee once I point it out, you're welcome, everyone, is if you look at his last legendary skin, I forgot the last 2, the one, but really on the last one, the Cyclops, whatever you want to call it.
The Prophet one.
He has a Pokemon ball on his chest. He legit has a Pokemon ball. So, gotta catch them all. Pokemon Sigma. No? You're not all about Pokemon Sigma?
Oh, okay, so I'm going to sidetrack really quick. So today, they posted a new trailer for, Pokemon, like the Pokemon Shield and Sword. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen this, but like you guys have got to go check out the new Pokemon that they revealed. Like one of them is like it's a different take. I was like a region take on Weezing, and he's just like this like 18th century like I'm trying to think how I would describe it, like an industrial, like, mogul, essentially. And then there's, like, you got, like, your Kiss-themed, like, evolution for, like, a skunk, which looks really bizarre.
I would like to also point out that this is a monumentous occasion that, for once, I was the first one on this podcast to not go completely off topic, and it was Totem this time.
I mean, to be fair... I'm glad we had the pre-show muted yesterday, because we had some we had some owl off topic for sure.
Oh yeah, it was
to a varying degree far worse than anything that we've had prior. But yeah, now I'm not gonna be able to unsee that at that point.
Yeah, we can't release that on Patreon, like we'd get kicked off. 18 plus.
Mm-hmm. So outside of that, we do have 3 new highlight intros, and one of them is revolving around his ult, where he's basically, like, grabbing the camera, lifting it up, and then, like, slamming it on the ground. which I thought was probably the best out of the three, but nothing was really grabbing my attention out of the bulk of the cosmetics, so it's pretty obvious, like, a lot of, like, the skins and stuff are more dark in nature, obviously, due to just the overall character, so I'm curious to see where they're going to take things in the future, but for now, it's just kind of, like, alright. I mean, it's hard to stand out, like, just with the base release, you know?
Yeah, they do this every time with a new character, is they don't release a new character with some awesome new skin or anything like that. They always release those after. At a further future event. They don't, like, even now, if you think about, like, the actual original characters, how many of them came out with awesome legendaries that weren't event skins or event emotes or stuff like that? Most of the time, I can't think of one that the legendary that originally came with it is better than what could be from some event. So this is not surprising to me at all.
So moving on, guys, just as a reminder, next week is going to be a pretty big week for Overwatch because we're going to have the new patch. We're going to have role queue put into the game. I know a lot of us are really excited about that. You can expect a lot more host streams, as soon as next week hits, as all of us have been playing quite a bit on the PTR, actually. Probably more so than we ever have collectively prior. So the new patch is going to be set for August 13th, which will be next Tuesday, so we'll have role queue being active in quick play and competitive play. So for competitive, we're going to have that beta role queue season, which is going to last through September 1st, so we got a couple of weeks of that. And it's important to note that when it comes to, the matchmaking ranks, Blizzard has been tracking this on each role for a few months now, and I know when we've been on the PTR, there's been a lot of fluctuations in regards to SR. Like, I know the one day when we were doing your tank placements and we went, like, 5-0, like, I jumped over 400 SR when I was playing support. I highly doubt that's going to be the case, so it's not going to be, like, this magic wand that you could just wave around and be like, oh, I'm suddenly diamond, when you've been, like, a gold player throughout the majority of your playtime in Overwatch. But, if that happens, it'll be nice, but it'll feel cheapened, because I won't feel as if I had earned it, as opposed to before, when you were just kind of, like, stuck in Elo Hill.
Yeah, this is amazing that it's coming next week. I mean, more than likely, I'm not going to guarantee it, but more than likely, along with it will come all the PTR changes, Sigma, all that stuff will probably be out on the 13th as well. And then, yeah, like you said, it will be in the beta, and, test it out. Quick play, it will be nice to have 2-2-2 for quick play even, because that's just horrendous at this point. I kind of want 2-2-2. I kind of want 2-2-2 for arcade, but I don't think that's possible. But you do have OG quick play in arcade now, and so it's awesome that it's coming. Let's hope the beta season actually we see tweaks and adjustments made once more people are playing it. Because if we go in the beta and then they don't change anything, who knows? And Spider, I actually think they said on starting August 13th, role queue will be active in both quick play.
Well, who knows? Dot Esports might have it wrong, because I could have sworn there was a delay too. We'll have to double check on that. Well, either way, like, we will have the beta season starting, so keep an eye on that. But I know a lot of us are looking forward to it. Just seeing the overall state of the game improve across the board. We'll see whether or not. I'm really anxious to see like who's gonna be like top in like the flex leaderboards moving forward. When you combine all of the 3 different SRs.
Yeah, it's there's gonna be those tryhards that are gonna be like, I want to be top 10 in all 3, and I have pity on their souls, because that's gonna take a lot of work to do that. And then like you said, you have the flex, and it brings a whole new dynamic to see who's the top. Because when you look at the top now, actually a lot of it is just like, all right, Widow, Tracer, Genji are your top 3 played characters, or this person has 45 wins and they're all on just only Roadhog. So it'll be nice to like have that broken up, get some new people back.
So it's excited that we also have a community shout out this week in regards to something that was made via the workshop. And no, this is not an actual like new game mode that we constantly like to shill any chance that we get. I'm talking about something that was a recreation of the Dragons animated short, all of which was done in game. And man, what a throwback that is! I mean, that was out in like May 2016. We're hitting the rewind button on this one. So the recreation of Dragons came from the YouTuber Frenzy. So a couple of things that you could notice is like they were able to match like the color of the Dragon Strike for Hanzo to go along with what we saw in the actual animation. So that was done via the workshop. I did like that we didn't rather than having like the random Hanamura security guards, like the animated short, they just replaced them all with Soldier 76s. But it was really cool to just see basically shot by shot as close of a remake, so to speak, that they could do. And there were a couple of things kind of like added in, like how like one of the soldiers near the start like ran into the bell on point A of Hanamura. I thought was pretty funny. But outside of that, it was pretty spot on, and I'm really curious to see whether or not they're going to try to recreate some of the other animated shorts. And I want to know how long like this process as a whole took, because trying to like recreate something frame to frame is actually very hard to do, and especially something that's like 8.5 minutes like this video was.
Yeah, it was pretty cool when I watched it, and obviously they couldn't get it exactly right because it's in-game versus being a cartoon. But yeah, I would be very interested to see what other ones, if any, that they do after this is fairly popular.
They picked the best one.
Yeah, they picked the best one. Except, I don't know, Wally, the Bastion one was pretty darn good. With no talking, the Bastion one was awesome. Say that. But my favorite was the Soldier. Like, Soldier played like the random henchman, was doing his little dance with his rifle. It was pretty cool.
It's kind of backwards though. Usually Soldier is the one going after the henchman.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other one would be good for them to do.
The Zenyatta one. Oh wait.
Sombras would not be plausible. Really. Soldiers maybe. Maybe, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to do it anymore, and I think they should, because it was pretty cool.
So moving into this week's hot community topics, we do have a couple of things. So first up, we have an update on the Crystal drama that surfaced, or just more details, so to speak. So the Hanjo Spark have suspended Crystal indefinitely. We're not expecting Crystal to be back based off of the reports that we saw. So to keep everyone up to speed, basically Crystal had taken a leave of absence with the team and failed to report back to the team after, the 10 days, never asked for an extension of his leave. So they fined him initially, and then, there's a whole public shaming thing, and then we just have this huge outline over several months about some of the problems that they have had with Crystal, and it's pretty clear at this point now that we have more information. One, how lenient the organization as a whole have been for such a young player, and two, just how many instances there have been that kind of just got passed over, so to speak. So we got our good look at the timeline, and this is going all the way back to, like, even before the season started. So initially, Crystal had traveled to the United States using a tourist visa rather than a work visa before the start of the season, which basically forced him to go back to China in order to re-enter the country with the proper visa. So he basically ended up missing the entirety of the preseason. He also missed the start of the first stage after he had postponed his return until February 21st. We also know at this point that he actually lied about the reasoning for returning home. He was actually spending time with his girlfriend rather than, taking care of his mother, as he had initially claimed for the leave of absence. And looking back, there were also a lot of issues with him being unresponsive to, coach demands. There were a lot of scrim blocks and VOD review sessions that he completely bailed on. Just overall, toxic behavior, and this is dating back basically since the get-go at this point. So as soon as these issues started to surface with the Spark and Crystal, the Spark tried to offload Crystal to another team. So they were looking at the Guangzhou Charge, they were talking to Boston Uprising, as well as the Washington Justice, and no agreement was ever reached with any of these teams, and we know that this is pretty much done at this point with the Spark, I would say. So I don't know if there's going to be another team that's going to be willing to take a chance on him, but based off of the number of infractions, that does seem pretty unlikely.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is true for all sports. What Crystal did was shitty. It was just bad of him. It was stupid. He was an idiot. He was a moron. He may be toxic. Here's where we figure out how talented Crystal actually is. Mm-hmm. Because if there's one thing that's true, talent trumps doing bad shit. It's just true. If somebody's talented enough, teams will forgive or ignore what the person has done in the past. I mean, there's a star running back in the NFL, Joe Mixon, who literally knocked out his girlfriend and broke her jaw on camera, and he was still drafted and is a starter in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is another one for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just talent trumps bad behavior. And if unless the league flat out says he can't play anymore, which this doesn't seem like something the league is going to step in on. This seems like a team thing. If Crystal's talented enough, if Crystal's talented enough, somebody will sign him, or someone will sign him to a two-way, contract with the Contenders team. And, maybe after a year of him behaving well, they'll call him up to the main roster. Stuff like that. I don't think this is the end of Crystal unless he chooses it to be that. So, yeah, I mean, Spider said in chat, Ray Lewis stabbed a guy, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
People get away with stuff if there's talent there. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I have no sympathy for Crystal in this whole thing. The only thing is I'm still not a fan of the way the Spark is. Yes, you can release stuff publicly, be like, we have suspended Crystal indefinitely for conduct detrimental to the team, or something worded like that. Don't legit just start releasing screenshots of your Discord chats with him, of all this stuff. It's like yes, he did something wrong, and you're getting him off the team, but now you're just publicly shaming him. Crystal did the bad things, but the Spark are the bullies in this. In this thing, they just they're trying to sway public opinion to hate Crystal. And they're just releasing the information, which is not meant to be released. Mm-hmm. That's my only thing on it. The Spark did the right thing in suspending him and suspending him indefinitely and all that stuff, except for just releasing it all to the public when they don't have to, and they really shouldn't. So, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents about it, but I don't think Crystal's done in Overwatch League.
Yeah, and there's been even a lot more instances outside of those examples that we gave in traditional sports, with second chance, third chances, things like that, that we could talk about to you. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about the viewership and the Twitch numbers that we've seen with the Overwatch League. So yes, there has been a little bit of an uptick with the introduction of Rollock into the Overwatch League. Now, that being said, we're still not quite at the point where, we were initially earlier on at the start of the second season. So one of the things that Blizzard is looking to do is they're going to try to bring in more viewers to the Overwatch League. And what they're going to do is they're going to partner with what they consider to be brand-safe streamers. Now, basically, what this is going to do is they're going to be using the Twitch bounty system, where you will have streamers getting paid to raid the Overwatch League Twitch channel whenever the channel goes live. So basically, if you guys don't know what the raid system is, let's say, like, we're about to go off the air, and we just decide to transfer our viewership over to, another podcast, someone that's, like another podcaster streaming currently, and then, you would raid their channel, they'll get all, like, 8, 10 people, however many, and then that goes directly to their channel, so their viewership fluctuates based on the size of the raid. Now, I know there's been, a lot of talk about Twitch as of late. There's a pretty big move with Ninja going to another platform, and how they've kind of, like, handled that situation where they're basically, like, having, like, the top 3 streams or whatever whenever you go to that channel. Which kind of sucks, because, for one, they don't really need the visibility, but I would love to just have Blizzard just, like, throw a ton of money at Twitch and just be like, make sure we're the priority here. Because that would be a huge jump, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
It would, but, like, here's the thing about, like, this is smart. It's just a smart thing to do. But when they released it and it was like, okay, they want, brand safe streamers, every single Overwatch League fan was like, they put that in because of XQC, didn't they? And you know what? You're right. Because everyone, if they didn't, everyone would be like, get XQC. No. He's toxic as hell, and they probably don't want a lot of XQC fans swarming the Overwatch League channel, spamming God knows what in Twitch chat.
Yeah, those try-hard 7s.
Yes. But yeah, like Shroud would be a great one. Certain ones, streamers, I don't think would work. Like Tim the Tatman wouldn't work because he doesn't stream at night. So, like, he would have to, like, stream for a little bit at night and then send everyone there. So I don't know if that would work. Maybe on weekends, like early, because I know he sometimes streams early morning on Saturdays.
Right.
Possibly, but yeah, like Shroud, Seagull, and you can even get some of the smaller ones who have a good, like, base, like IDD Cutie. Still gets, like, only like 1,500, 1,600 viewers a day, but, maybe you could start getting smaller streamers in there too, and, so, I don't know, maybe, what if they start cracking down on, like, people like Avast? Like, being like, you know what, no, we don't want you, like, he does work for Overwatch, essentially. I mean, he's an announcer for Contenders. Like, they can be like, we don't want you streaming during the matches because you're pulling away viewership. So that's another thing that they could start doing.
I don't know if I would say they're pulling away viewership, because a lot of people that I talk to that like to have that up are primarily having it up just for the commentary and then still watching the main channel.
Yeah, I mean, could be. Jane would be another one if he mentally gets back into it and starts streaming and releasing, like, public stuff. He would be another, like, a perfect, but he's also a part-time coach now too. So who knows? But this is a smart idea. This is like just marketing, like marketing 101. Get the people with the most followers, pay them to follow you, and send some viewers when they're done your way. Like, it is that simple. And they can probably, as weird as this sounds, Twitch in the background could probably make it also beneficial for the streamers. So, like, let's say you're watching Shroud stream and Shroud raids the Overwatch channel. Well, maybe Twitch can change it that Shroud, the people don't have to like leave his channel to go to the Overwatch League, and it can combine the viewership.
Mm-hmm.
So like Shroud gets all these people like subbing and sending bits while they watch the Overwatch League on his stream, but Overwatch League benefits from the added viewership, and then they can go to their all the people that sponsor them and be like, this our combined viewership, and then it's a win-win, because they would probably have to pay some of these streamers a decent amount of money to be like, okay, you're not allowed to stream, you have to raid the Overwatch League, and you can't stream during that, so you're going to lose all this money.
Mm-hmm.
So they could do something like that, but it'll be interesting to see how that all works out.
Right on. We do also have an update on the Houston Outlaws situation, because this has been a team that has been up for sale here as of late. So we're expected the deal to close in late August, and I actually have a Houston real estate investor who's looking to close the deal, and that is Lee Zeben, who has come to terms with Immortals Gaming Club to purchase the Outlaws for $40 million. So the deal comes following the Immortals acquired Infinite Esports and Entertainment, which is the parent company of both Optic Gaming and the Houston Outlaws. And this happened a couple of months ago. This was back in June, actually. So Immortals are looking to retain ownership of the Optic brand. So this will split Optic and the Outlaws at this point. And basically, the league had required Immortals to sell the Outlaws to a third party due to the involvement with Immortals in the Overwatch League already, as they do own the Los Angeles Valiant. And you were not allowed to own equity in two different Overwatch League teams. Now, I know you and I have been hopeful about, maybe this team wouldn't be staying where they were at, both for good and bad, because I know you and I are, really wanting a Chicago team, and we're like, there's a chance we could get the Outlaws. I wouldn't be my first pick, but, we wouldn't absolutely despise the idea. But this pretty much puts the nail in the coffin. I'm not expecting the Outlaws to get shipped elsewhere at this point, just due to the fact that they went with someone that's still a pretty notable name in the area, and, he happens to be from Houston, so there is that as well. But you have to think, as an Outlaws fan, this is more of a weight lifted off of your shoulders at this point, because it's been pretty obvious, behind the scenes, that the whole uncertainty about where the team was going to land, or, just how the sale was going to go, that their hands were, kind of tied. They couldn't really make any sort of adjustments. And there's been a lot of, wonky stuff, with coach decisions, things like that. Players get put in when they shouldn't be, and then, sometimes it works. Or we only hear when it works. Have you noticed that, Ed? Anytime that someone gets subbed in wrongfully and actually pays out, that's the only time we hear about it, but we never hear about it after the fact when it bites them in the ass. So I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah. They're never gonna be like, yeah, we screwed up, we put in Dante, and it cost us the map. Awkward.
Yeah. I feel like part of that, though, is they don't want to know how often it happens.
Yeah, they don't want to be like, yeah, we're real bad at this substitution thing. Mm-hmm. So, doesn't surprise me with the Outlaws, though.
You would think after a season and a half that they would have a general idea.
Yeah, be like, wait, I go in map 3, so that means they go in after the first map, right? Yes. Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But, yeah, it's unfortunate we don't get a team in Chicago yet. We have to wait at least one more year. And who knows even then, mm-hmm. If they will, announce some new teams and whatnot. But, yeah, it's $40 million. Yes, it's over the reported $20 million that it was the initial purchase. But, it's not that insane to think that, yeah, they paid the $20 million to basically just buy the franchise, mm-hmm. but then, they had to sign all the players. They had to get all the coaches, all that stuff. Like, you know, the housing, the branding, the marketing, all that stuff is already paid for and in place. You're buying. It's like, you know, you go and buy a bar 2 years after they open the bar. Well, yeah, you get all the inventory, you get the customers, you get all that stuff with it. They didn't have that luxury. And I think that's the big reason why, like, I know, like, you had reference to the closest thing we can compare to is league spots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing. In league, they're just buying the spot. They still have to supply their own team. They're not buying the spot and the roster and the organization and all that stuff. So yeah, it would cost more, but, you know, hopefully they do something. They already announced a new president.
Yeah, they did. I actually forgot to write that in my notes.
Yeah, it's I actually have it pulled up. Chris Diapolilonio. And I don't know, like, it just says he's an esports alum from, you know, NYU Global Sports. And yeah, that's really about it. Lafayette College. Like, doesn't have a massive following. Like, looks like he had 700 followers. You know, so I don't know where this guy came from. You know, now it's a matter of if they can turn this and actually do something with the team. Because if one team has just been scraping by, it's been the Outlaws. Like, that's the big thing. Like, you need an owner who it will come in and won't be like, cut costs. We need to make this team better, but I'm going to cut all the costs. Or a owner coming in and being like, okay, let's do the best we can. Let's get new players. Let's analyze. Let's, you know, bring in some new blood, stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they'd still be number 20 in my book.
Well, it's important to note, too, like, not only are they acquiring the team, but they're also acquiring one of the bigger fan bases out there. Because even looking at, like, the team leaderboards, like, with the Twitch bits and the cheers and all of that, the Outlaws are still holding things down in the top 5. I think they're still, I want to say they're 4th overall. I know Atlanta's still up there, Spark, NYXL are above them. Then you have both of the Texas teams, and then you have Houston above Dallas at that point. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Outlaws, I feel like, more so than the bulk of the Overwatch League. Just because there just kind of seem to be like a hiring freeze. And I don't... You know, a large part of that was just due to everything that went on behind the scenes, but I'm curious to know, like, how much of the fact that they are one of the more popular fan bases that kind of cautiously brought them to just not wanting to make any sort of moves, because it could be a combination of both, but I don't expect to see all of these players and coaches back next season.
No. And, I mean, I fully expect them to get a new off-tank, probably get rid of Spree and Cool Matt. You know, bring in some more support players. Who knows what's going to happen with Jake?
Mm-hmm.
Like this will be an interesting off season. That's for sure. But we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, especially when you factor in how many 2-year contracts there were.
Exactly.
There's gonna be a lot of free agents. It's gonna be like the Wild West.
It's gonna be like, okay, everyone signed a 2-year deal. Everyone's a free agent at the exact same time. This is going to be chaotic. So, a lot of things could change.
Cue the away we go gif.
And here we go.
Absolutely. But anyways, guys, let's talk about what's been going on in the competitive scene. So we do have an update in regards to the Overwatch World Cup. We have our finalized 7-man roster for your back-to-back probably champions. And, you know, keep repeating. That being none other than South Korea. So the sole returning player from last year's championship team is Carpe, and the only other player on this team who has been on the national roster in the past is Mono, who last played on the World Cup stage for South Korea in 2017. Alright, so who are all the new faces? Well, on DPS we have Hoxel from the Vancouver Titans, and Architect from the San Francisco Shock. Now that one, I know you and I were just like, yeah, he's not gonna make it. And then Architect was like one of the first names, and we're just like, what?
Yeah, but then you also got to think who their coach is too.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying that there's a little bit of biasness?
Maybe just a bit. You know.
Oh, okay.
Just a bit.
Okay. So on that note, will Architect be to South Korea what Zachary was to the United States last season?
No, because Architect's better. Yeah, no. I mean, even with this lineup, I don't know if Architect is a starter. I mean, I say that now, but, you know, who knows what's going to happen. Like, for starters, if you're going to have a Widowmaker, you're probably putting Carpe on. Let's be real there. So he can't screw that up like Zachary. You know, Architect, the reason Krusty gave for picking Architect is he fully believes when the World Cup comes around, it's going to be double hit scan meta. And that's why he said he wanted that, him on the team. So, you know what? They know more about, like, what the pro meta is going to be in what would be, like, 3 weeks from now. 4 weeks from now, 3.5. Than we do, because we aren't watching the script, seeing what everyone's running and stuff like that. So maybe he's right.
I mean, it is Krusty. He's done a lot of things right.
Yeah, and it's I mean, Architect has been starting again. So probably some truth to it.
Yeah, that and you know, the Shock are looking pretty good.
Yeah. Wait, so Bedosian hasn't been on a Korean team?
No.
Really? That's actually super surprising.
You have to remember, like, how deep South Korea is on, like, all of the different roles. Flex or me.
Jonak.
Yeah, you know, there is that Jonak guy. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's decent at this, you know, Overwatch thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was MVP or anything last year. So outside of that, so joining Mono on the tank line, you also have another Shock player, that being Choi Hyo-bin. That was who we expected just based on the current meta. Choi's Hog, man. Like, what the heck, man? Like, he's astronomically better than the field, I would say.
Yep. I do not disagree with that sentiment at all. Like, Choi is super good. I'm glad. Like, he was an average D.Va player. Slightly above average, but, like, he was run-of-the-mill, nothing special, that special.
He wasn't a standout.
Yeah, and then put him on Roadhog, and it's like a whole new players out there, and it's just like, oh, you think you can get away from me, Fair? Think again.
Yeah. Oh, you're in the air? That's cute.
Oh, you're at my absolute max range? I know you are, and I'm gonna hook you. And it's gonna be glorious. So.
Yeah, gotta look out for them dirty hookers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll get you. Especially Choi.
The little cards.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen Choi handing out cards on the strip.
If I see Choi Hyo-bin on the Las Vegas Strip handing out hooker cards, I'm going to be very disappointed in this. And I'm blaming you, Totem.
Okay.
Alright.
That's a throwback to yesterday, since everyone doesn't know what we're talking about.
That was like the PG version of our OWL Bio.
One of many. But anyways, let's take a look at the support line. So we have IDK and Bedosian. This is a pretty interesting line, and, you know, across the board, there are a ton of good support options. You kind of have like the aggression of IDK, but Dojin's been pretty consistent across the board for London Spitfires, so can't do too wrong there. So, you know, it's interesting to know that, you know, there are a couple other teams that, when you look at the World Cup roster, they're like, yeah, we're just gonna keep the same team, basically. Like, you know, Canada did that. China kept a lot of the same players as well, and then South Korea's like, yeah, like, we roll deep, so, you know, we can just bring, like, one person back, and then we're still gonna stop everyone. So we'll see whether or not they'll be able to match or even surpass what they did last year, which was basically win literally every map outside of one, which was a draw to the United Kingdom. But it's safe to say, regardless of who's going to be on the team, whether it is like a top rank support or someone that might crack the top 8, because that's how deep South Korea is, they're still going to be the heavy betting favorites to win yet again. And, you know, we're just kind of all at Korea's mercy.
Yeah. One thing, and I forgot, and someone in Twitch chat remind me, or say it was me or whatever, but somebody made a good point last week when we were talking about the World Cup, that I think the only way Korea doesn't win the World Cup is if we make it contenders players only. Like, no pro Overwatch League players allowed type of situation. So, like, you get the, you know...
That would rule out a lot of the prodigies.
Yes. But still have to be 18. Like, stick with that. That way you can't get, like, the South Korean prodigies in the lineup. And, you know, that way we can start seeing some more of the Tier 2 players. And those start to become more household names. And then people get more excited about them the next season instead of, well, who's this guy? You know, that someone like Gushue is a perfect example. Like, Gushue was, outside of people who followed Chinese contenders, nobody knew who the hell Gushue was. Like, you first brought him up, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And then, like, the World Cup happens, and then all of a sudden he's a star. And everyone knows his name. Then he gets into the Overwatch League, and then he's in the MVP voting. He's top 5 in jersey sales, and you know, he's one of the stars of the league, and that's all because he was in the World Cup.
And because I ingrained everyone's mind.
True. But, like, you could get that with more Tier 2 players. You could get these stars out there. So, I'm even okay with getting rid of the age limit to a certain degree. Because then we get sugar-free sooner. Sugar-free.
Yeah. Unless he just Benjamin Buttons to infancy.
Yes, that is true. But I think that's something that they could implement for next year.
What, babies in the World Cup?
Yes, babies in the World Cup.
Yeah, screw the Reinhardt cosplay races. We're gonna have, like, crawl matches between...
Here's the thing, though. We gotta start training them early with video games to create acts of violence, because they're playing video games. So the younger we get to them, the easier it is for them to do acts of violence, because they're playing video games.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
good on Slasher, though. Slasher definitely represented gamers very well.
This is, slightly off topic, because we were talking about South Korean World Cup, but did you watch the Fox News segment with them on there?
I did.
Yeah, it was really good, especially when he started talking about, like, it used to be that gamers were considered loners. And nowadays, it's the exact opposite. Like, gamers generally now have, like, yes, they like to be in their home by themselves, but they have more friends than non-gamers almost at this point.
Yeah, like, I think that's safe to say.
Like, it's just, you log on and you're like, okay, I got 25 people on my friends list right now. Or, you know, I'm talking to these people in Discord about this. Or, you know, so on and so forth. So, like, he really drove it home and made a good point. So, good on you, Slasher. Never thought I'd say that.
And he even swayed a couple opinions of people, too, from what we saw on Twitter, which is always nice to see. But anyways, let's talk about award season for the Overwatch League. So we do have a couple of new awards that were added this year. So we have, for starters, we have Rookie of the Year. So to be eligible for this, Ed, basically you just couldn't be on the contract during the inaugural season. So you might not be a rookie like in Overwatch, but the Overwatch League, yeah. So like, that includes all the expansion teams. That's gonna be a loaded field, to say the least. But they're gonna be voted by the general managers, your head coaches, broadcast talent, and media. And they're going to announce the winner of this on September 5th when the double elimination playoffs get underway. Now, that being said, I feel like there are a handful of candidates you could throw in here. But if you were to, like, give a short list, whether it's, like, 3, 5, whatever, who do you feel like would be considered to be a front runner for Rookie of the Year this season?
Haxel Gouchway.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably the top two right there. Like legit, probably anyone on the Vancouver Titans. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, kind of like with the MVP run. Like you could have picked any number of them.
Gouchway, Jinmu,
mm-hmm.
Is another one. I wouldn't put him back in there. Nero hasn't been popping off nearly enough the whole season.
Right?
Yeah. I think that would probably be my three: Haxel, Gouchway, and Jinmu.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm drawing a blank on anyone else that's brand new that has really stood out. Yeah, I don't think there really is one. So, yeah, that would be mine. Who would you put outside of the entire Vancouver Titans?
Outside of Haxel, who would absolutely be number one. Based on recent stuff, and that's the thing too, like, obviously we had our MVP discussion about, like, how we weren't excited that they were only factoring, like, half of the season. Corey has definitely come into his own here as of late, so that's going to be someone that's fresh on everyone's mind, so I could definitely see him in the run-in, if not for this, but for the other new award. Haxel definitely would be my top pick. Outside of that, man, I'm trying to think. Jinwoo's been good. I think Main would be another good choice, just because, like, he was at the forefront of the ball revolution in the Overwatch League. Would be a good choice. But Haxel is definitely the front runner when you consider that he has been top ranked at multiple roles this season, and I don't know if you could really say that about anyone else in the league. I could see, like, someone like Decay also being in the run-in.
Ding?
Ding's been pretty good, too.
Like, he could probably be up there, because, yeah, I was like, somebody on the Dragons probably wasn't in the league last year. I'm like, well, Ding.
Yeah, like, basically everyone from KDP.
Yeah. Ding, Decay. Yeah, but I still gotta think it's between, like, Haxel and Gouchway.
Yeah, so outside of that, they also introduce Role Stars, which is gonna be a little bit of like a free-for-all, I feel like. So you're gonna have the top 4 players per in-game role, so they'll have 4 damage, 4 tank, 4 support, and they will get special recognition during the 2020 season. So the requirement for this is they need to play in at least 60% of the possible maps this season, and we'll hear about the winners, I should say, on August 31st, which would be the second day of the play-in tournament. Now, see, like, this field is going to be wide open, especially when you factor in, this is with all of the teams, as opposed to just a rookie, so you're going to have, like, a laundry list of names, so I don't want to get too much into that, but I feel like, regardless of if someone is in, like, the Rookie of the Year discussion, or the MVP discussion, that's not going to rule them out being a front runner for Role Stars as well.
No, I wouldn't imagine it is, but it's going to be just, no matter who they pick, people will be like, they are utterly wrong. Like, mm-hmm. that's a one guarantee, because I could probably list 12, 16 DPS who could be ranked in the top 4. And then what do you do with tanks? Are you talking main tanks? Are you talking flex tanks?
It's as a whole.
Yeah. So like, like, what if are you considering, is Bumper a better tank than Johnny? Like, stuff to consider, like which one's a better tank when you have to consider Johnny's diva play as a tank.
Well, you know what you won't have to consider? Giannis.
Very true.
We've narrowed down the field, guys. You've heard it here first.
Yeah, and Zephyr. Zephyr will not be in the top 4 for tanks. Gonna nail that one.
Yeah, same with Swan.
Yeah. Zephyr and Giannis are anti-Korean World Cup team. First 2 picks right there.
Oh man.
But it will be interesting to see because they do. It's the same. It's going to be like the casters, the GMs, and all that stuff. Figure it out, and then I'm assuming they take like the average of each one, and the top 4 average will be the top. Top 4. So should be interesting to see. It's a weird award. Really, like, I don't know. After this year, what about like comeback player of the year or 7th man?
Yeah, like I feel like if they do that, then they would cut down on the number of people voted for Role Stars, because 4 is a pretty wide field at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But a 7th man seems like an obvious one to have. Like, who's the best 7th man in Overwatch League? Seems like could be fairly easy to come up with one. But yeah, more awards, and then they'll be recognized next year. Maybe they'll all get skins or something, something in game.
Well, we do know that London was visiting Blizzard HQ here over the past week, so we'll see what comes from that. So we're expecting like some sort of like championship recognition from the inaugural season at some point, so keep an eye on that. So just as a reminder, we also have like the Dennis Havelka Award for the most shining example of positive influence, both for the league, team, general community, things like that. That will be announced on August 30th. Mickey was the one that won it this prior year. We also have the regular season MVP, which will be announced on September 5th. And I think Sinatra still has a pretty sizable lead on that front. And then we also have the Grand Finals MVP, which will be announced on September 29th. So with the regular season MVP at this point, do you feel like this is just Sinatra's at this point, knowing that he's had the lead consistently since it started?
Yeah, it's Sinatra's. Sinatra's the MVP. Because, the majority of people have already voted. People aren't going to be making second accounts so they can go in and vote for Goushway or whoever to take over Sinatra. So I think at this point it's Sinatra's. Him and his MVP trophy can enjoy the bench.
I better get on my other 20,000 Twitter accounts to sway the field.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Russia when you really need them?
I mean, or China in this case. Like, China, what's up? Like, you inflate stream viewership, but you can't do it for your boy in the MVP voting? What's going on?
Are they allowed to have Twitter?
That's a fair point. Do they count their social media for what? It's like Weibo, something like that. Do they count that? I don't think they do.
I don't know. Oh yeah, Twitter is not allowed in China.
Okay, well there you go. This MVP voting is rigged. Rigged. You heard it here.
And thank God,
Ramsey's lost.
Came into the channel. Ramsey's lost around the payload. Thank God.
But the better question is,
who won?
Who won? He made it to the final round. That also sounds rigged.
That just means he's the first loser.
Yeah, basically.
Valmel won. All right, fair enough. So Bob didn't win, and Ramses didn't.
Yeah, that's like a double whammy for us. Feels good, man.
But yes, yeah, China not allowing Twitter completely screws over Gushue. Like,
okay, I guess it's up to me.
yeah,
That's good.
so
I better clear up a week of my schedule, guys.
Yes, everyone go out there, make 20,000 accounts, and vote for Gushue for MVP, because nobody in China is allowed to vote on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Make it happen.
There you go. We gotta pull up. We gotta just narrow the gap a little bit. Like it's too one-sided in favor of Sinatraa.
Yeah, it's Sinatraa. Sinatra's our MVP. Everyone can deal with it. If it was still 3-3, like, he probably would be playing at the same MVP level he was the first half. So,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, they are saying that your volume's been a little low tonight, which is weird because it sounds fine on my end, but not on OBS.
Weird. Because I'm talking louder than normal.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what the deal is. Like, I even turned my mic down a little bit to try to even it out, but apparently that hasn't helped enough. But anyways, guys, we do have an update on roster construction rules for the 2020 Overwatch League season. This was posted here very recently. So we got a list of some of the key deadline dates for the offseason, as well as some new rules for not just academy teams, but also two-way contracted players. So first up, on September 30th, we have the sign-in window opening up for teams to exercise team options for players that are already on existing contracts at this point. So at that point, you are able to negotiate contract extensions, as well as sign players from your affiliate teams. On October 7th, if you've completed exercise and existing contract options, you're able to submit free agent player contracts for league approval. This is also when player trades can be submitted to the office as well. So come November, that's when the 2019 season agreements come to a close. That would be November 11th. So if you are not on a contract at that point, that is when you enter the free agency pool. So, you know, as you and I had mentioned earlier, that's going to be a pretty big day across the board for the Overwatch League, just because a lot of these players were on 2-year contracts. So the free agency pool is going to be just... I don't want to say a cesspool, but it is going to be a little bit of a mess, but there's going to be a lot of names, a lot more than what we're used to seeing, so we'll have to see how all of that is going to shake up. But I want to talk about, like, the academy team stuff, because that is pretty important. Now, they went into contenders a little bit about, like, the roster cap, that stuff is staying at 8. They address, like, the player buyout fees that stay in, same with, like, the blackout windows to try to minimize any sort of disruption for the integrity of, like, contenders playoffs. But they did increase the number of two-way contracts you can have. So it was at 2 for this year. They basically doubled it so you can have up to 4. But the biggest thing about this is, in 2020, academy teams affiliated with the Overwatch League have to compete in the same region as their parent team. Now, one of the big storylines this year, at least with academy teams, was obviously Fusion University deciding to opt out of competing in North America after completely, like, shit-stomping NA every season. And then they went to Korea, and then they kind of got their asses kicked. They are going to make the playoffs. So there is that. But this is basically a Fusion Uni rule at the end of the day. So they'll have to come back. But they did, like, talk about how, like, if you're going to be competing outside of that, like, you need to have a meaningful local infrastructure in place. And if you don't, you're going to be losing benefits, whether it is, like, right to match, things like that, or even having, like, the two-way contracts, things like that. So not having the right to match clause granted to you is absolutely monumental, and that's too much of a risk to take if you want to compete outside of your region.
Yeah, it's not even worth it. Like it's like you said, it's the fusion rule. It forces Philly to come back to the U.S. after they played one season in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't do well, but it forces them to come back. And then what happens with their team? Like, because now they have an all-Korean team. Are they gonna keep them, or are they going to let them walk, or what's gonna happen? So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, it's kind of a big deal. I wonder if there's still no requirement for people to have a contenders team.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if any other teams will drop out of having a contenders team. It seems stupid now that you have the right to match contracts going out there. So like it's kind of like a farm system. And they can, they can basically be like, okay, we're going to grow this talent, and then you're basically locked in. If you're doing good enough, you're locked in to play for this team. If another team tries to sign you, one thing I do have a question about with all this is, what about current contenders players?
Mm-hmm.
So, like in my mind, I'm thinking of like, some of these young stars are signed with teams because it's convenient for them, or they're playing with the team they always played for, but maybe they don't want to get locked into playing for that and basically having to play for whatever salary you already have going. Like for Alarm, for instance. Like, if this is like makes it in and he's still on Fusion University, they have the right to match any contract offer on Alarm, and maybe Alarm doesn't want to play for Fusion University, but then they would have no choice because they had a pre-existing contract, and then the rules were put in place. So I don't know if they let certain people out of it, because I'm sure you could, like a player could argue that they want out of the contract and they want to be able to sign with who they want to sign with. Because just like anyone in the actual Overwatch League, they can sign with whoever they want to sign with. Once you sign the contract, you're stuck with them. Unless you demand a trade or so on and so forth. But contenders team players aren't signing with an Overwatch League team. So with this new rule comes new like little questions, nuances that can get brought up. So it'll be interesting.
And just speaking of contenders, we do have some new information on the Gauntlet, which will be taking place in October. This is basically like the culmination of the 2 seasons of contenders this year, as well as the Atlantic and Pacific Showdown. Also, suck at EU, because they lost to NA. Feels good, man.
Suck at EU.
So the dates for this are October 9th through the 13th, which is a Wednesday to Sunday. This will be at the Giga Arena in Seoul, South Korea. So just as a reminder, we have top teams from China, Europe, Korea, North America, and the Pacific. That was based on Season 2 playoffs, which are going to be coming up very soon, as most are... I'm trying to remember what week they're on in Contenders. It's like either 6 or 7 at this point, which is, the tail end of the group stage. So we have 10 teams advancing as a whole to the Gauntlet. So, in regards to the Showdown results... we basically have a top team from NA and Korea receiving a bye into the Gauntlet Finals bracket. Now, before that, we have the group stage, which is going to be split into 2 groups. You'll have 4 in Group A, 4 in Group B, and that will be run in double elimination. So we'll have 1 team from each group being eliminated there. So in regards to, other things in the format, these are all going to be first to 3 matches outside of the finals, whether it is, upper bracket, lower bracket for the winners and losers, as well as the Gauntlet finals. Both of those will be first to 4. So, of course, since this is taking place post 2-2-2, this will be played with the roll lock. And they invited all the Overwatch League teams to send representatives to the Gauntlet as a way to have access to teams and players for interviews, and always, also to, scout talent for the 2020 season. So, in regards to the World Cup, this is going to be the primary spot for teams to seek out players. So this is a huge platform for them. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Overwatch is going to promote this. Like, that is always my biggest concern with Tier 2. And I think just knowing, like, considering that this is, like, the end of the road for contenders, that they're going to have a lot more stake in this, so I'm not expecting them to just kind of, like, sweep it under the rug, so to speak.
Yeah, you would hope not.
But, who knows?
But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, don't bet any BlizzBucks.
Yeah. And here's one thing that you have to take into account. This is all fine and dandy for them to send players out there or teams out there to talk to players and all that fun jazz. But remember, October 7th, before this, is teams had, they have to decline or exercising all existing contract options for their current players. So they have to decide on their current players before they go and talk to these contenders players. Seems a little backwards to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to decide if you're going to cut them based on not talking to the people who you would sign to replace them. So it seems weird. And it's minor because we all know, like, anyone with half a brain realizes that when free agency opens, that's not the first time teams and players are talking.
Right.
Like, there's a reason in the NFL when the free agency starts at midnight, or I think it was like 2 o'clock this year, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By 2:05, the top 10 players are already signed. They didn't work out a contract in 5 minutes.
What?
Yeah, they like, hey, we're just gonna offer you the highest paid player in the NFL.
Okay,
Deal.
so
Announce
okay,
it.
hold on. You're saying like a team doesn't call an agent, and they just say 400 million, and then the agent's like done, and then that's it.
Yeah, but you can't talk about it publicly because we get in trouble. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we'll know. A lot of the information will be released before October 7th. And, the gauntlet, here's the other thing. A lot of these players are under the age of 18, so we know they're not coming.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Maybe people are scouting them for their contenders team.
Well, you know who you're not going to see at the Gauntlet? This is also EU, mind you.
Oh, who are we not going to see?
A certain Clockwork Vendetta team.
Suck it, EU.
You know, the team that would be really good in this meta, since it was based into 2-2. Yeah, they didn't advance to the finals, so feels bad for them.
Yeah,
and they're all LFT, by the way.
See, here's the thing. Clockwork Vendetta. Yeah, they built around 2-2-2. They could do good. They said the same thing about EU's GOATS compositions. The 3-3, they originated it. It's theirs. It's what they're good at. And they sucked at it.
They lost to NA.
So you know what? That's an empty threat by Clockwork Vendetta. Mm-hmm. And now they're all looking for a team.
Yeah. Well, some of them will have an opportunity at the World Cup. I know Engineer is on the German team, so we'll see how he does on that front. But let's go ahead and talk about the wacky week that was in Overwatch League. So for starters, we saw the meta really start to situate. So we kind of shied away from a lot of the double sniper, or just like the Widow Hanzo comps, in particular that we saw this. I'm losing my voice already. We're not even that far in. But we moved away from double sniper, and there was a huge uptick in Mei and Reaper picks. So Mei jumped up 30.1%. She had the second highest pick rate at 70.3% overall. That was only behind Orisa, who was leading the charge at 84% overall, which was a jump of 18.5% from the prior week. Reaper saw a sizable jump at 26%. Then we also saw Baptiste jump up quite a bit as well, plus 15.8% across the board. He was over 41%. We saw Moira get a nice jump as well at 13.1%, which put her at 31.6%. And it's been interesting because, you know, in the first week, we saw a lot of different looks. There was a lot of experimentation, and it seems like a lot of teams have settled on running the Dicicle composition, as Spider had put it, with the Mei, the Reaper. Obviously, you have Orisa there. But what was really curious about this week, Ed, was the fact that, looking back at last week, we had a pretty even split with the off-tanks between D.Va and Roadhog. And this week, there was a little bit more of a separation where D.Va was actually getting the better of the exchange. But are you surprised at all that, like, we've kind of started to shy away from double sniper and just keeping Mei at the forefront here?
I think a little bit, and we don't know if this trend is going to continue, because if memory serves me, Mei was kind of brought in because she is a very strong counter to the pulled pork. Because you can just put the ice wall up, block it, nothing happens. I mean, and that's why you saw, you know, we actually saw an increase in D.Va play and a decrease in Roadhog play this week. So that is something where, well, now if people are just not running Roadhog, like if Roadhog starts to fall off, is Mei even necessary? Like, I don't think the meta is done. Like, done evolving from what we see. Because, like, there are even some crazy drastic changes from week 1 to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, some of them, Mercy fell off 25%.
Yeah, and I feel like part of that, too, was just the lack of Widow play. They're kind of, like, hand in hand, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Winston, down to 3% played. Like, you know, you really saw, like, people jump up, and you saw a lot fall off. And, you know, it's not like switching up by, like, 1-2%. Most of these are by, like, 10%, 12%. So, things are still working its way out. I don't know if we're staying on, you know, Mei Reaper, and if we are, for how long? Because like we talked about earlier, in 3 weeks, this meta will be different. Because, you know, D.Va is getting a nice nerf on the PTR right now with their defense matrix, I believe. You know, so maybe that will have an effect. You know, maybe Big Ed will come back into the meta because now she can actually be a healer. Like, we don't know what it's going to be, but that's what's kind of throwing everyone into a tizzy on what's going on. Is we know that it's all changing, and we wanted that change, but then we also know that it's probably going to change in 3 weeks as well.
Well, I will say I hope that Vancouver would throw in a tizzy.
Yeah, that actually surprised me.
Although that isn't officially announced, even though the jersey was kind of put up for sale.
Yeah, but maybe he had visa issues. Him and Crystal are having a party.
Well, maybe he too was in Shanghai, visiting his girlfriend.
Yeah. One that's a little bit surprising to me is still super high up there that really kind of skyrocketed is Lucio. Lucio being the number one played support player in this is kind of, it's interesting. I get it why, because you're not using double sniper, so you can speed boost in like non-flankers, and then you can boop. Like you saw in the Houston game this week, Lucio can boop. You know, boop Orisa in front of the shield, boop Roadhog or whatnot. But I don't know, with Roadhog being out there, Lucio is a very prime target for a good old hook. So I'm a little confused by the Lucio one, but I still don't see why Diva's still getting played all that much. Like, Diva and Orisa are just a tank combo that doesn't seem to really, mix together. Like their play styles are kind of like, it's hard to put into word. It's kind of like running Zarya and Orisa.
Well,
like
the thing about that too, which is kind of interesting, is Diva is used a lot to kind of abuse the high ground. But, like, this week we didn't see as much high ground control. Like, primarily the only heroes that were abusing that were, like, Diva and Hanzo. And Hanzo still is seeing a lot of play. He's actually the third highest DPS pick so far. But there is a ton of Ana play right now, which is why we're seeing a lot of Diva, because being able to just soak in those anti-nades are an absolute huge deal. But for me, like, it's very refreshing to see, 3 different supports out there that are sitting above a 40% pick rate. So you got, Lucio, Ana, Baptiste. Moira was over 30%, so there's a lot of variety that we're seeing. A lot of interchangeable parts, at least on a support line, when usually it's primarily just been, like, 2, maybe 3 viable options, and now it's just kind of like, we don't really know what to expect all the time, just because there's been a lot of moving parts, and Moira's been making a pretty sizable impact on some of these teams.
Yeah, Moira has really started to creep up because, like, you can't eat a Moira ultimate. You can eat the orbs, but, one thing that pro Moira players do that people like at our level don't do with Moira is they're actually throwing out healing orbs. The yellow one.
What's that?
But that's usually not getting thrown at the other team. So, Diva would have to go in and eat the healing orb in, like, the middle of the group. And that's not as likely. And then, her ultimate, it's not a projectile or anything, can't be eaten and whatnot. And then, it's just, she can pump out a lot of heals really quickly. And it's a good fight initiator.
Right, I do want to point out that Bob basically posted a laundry list of things that Diva's defense matrix can eat. The only thing that it can't eat is other characters, like that workshop mode. But yeah, Bob's absolutely right. You can soak in a lot of stuff. And I feel like the Reaper one is arguably the biggest one, just because Reaper is one of the most picked DPS right now. And you to just be able to go in and just soak in all of the Death Blossom when that's such an impact ultimate, especially like when you're seeing the Beyblade, so to speak, coming in, and then you're just completely shutting that down.
Yeah, it's like Diva is too powerful and has been in the meta since like week 1 and should be nerfed heavily.
Pilot mode only.
Yeah, only baby Diva allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And her ultimate is she jumps into her mech for 30 seconds.
They should just give her the crap. What was the one in Heroes of the Storm? Like it was like a charge shot with her gun. They should just do it like that. So rather than like a consistent damage, it's like a beam shot that you charge up, and then it's just like lobs a huge like bullet essentially.
Yeah,
they should do that.
God, I hate her so much. Like, that defense matrix is just stupid. Like, I get it. It's just, I hate it. Like, it's just one of those ultimates. It's on the same level for me as the mass res for Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't an ultimate ability.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, she doesn't eat a lot. It's just, with so much Orisa play, I just feel Roadhog is a better pairing with Orisa. And in a perfect world, Roadhog probably is better paired with Orisa than Diva, but Diva is just so strong when it comes to, like Bob had pointed out, eating things. Like, can basically eat anything thrown at it. And, doesn't have to do much chasing down on high ground because we're not really seeing the double double sniper meta, and you don't have to chase down the Widow. It's legit. She's basically just being brought in to eat stuff, and that's where we're at now. Is someone's meta because they can eat everything thrown at them.
Yeah, how is Fury not full at this point?
Right? Well, now it's Fury and then Space. Space has been eating males left and right.
Mm-hmm. But at least with that, like, it's a little bit easier just because there's more of a cast time on that front. But man, what a crazy week it was in Overwatch League. So we had some pretty big upsets this week. So we saw Toronto actually defeating Shanghai Dragons 2-1. Which, fantasy-wise, that was a huge performance from Toronto across the board. We saw the Mayhem defeat the Spitfire 3-0, so, Gargoyle coming in hot, really starting to bring some new life into the Mayhem, which is crazy. And then, of course, we had 2 4-0s, like we saw the Titans get swept for the first time, as well as a New York Excelsior getting swept for the first time, both of which happen on the same day. And I love, like, as soon as it happened to the Titans, like, they pulled up, like, the infographic, on stream about how, like, now NYXL have, like, the sole, spot for this to happen, or not to happen. And then, sure enough, Hunters just come in and just 4-0 Excelsior. Gotta love it.
Yeah, be like, give us 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll take care of that. Like, yeah. it was just insane. It was a week of nobody knows what is going on, and the teams just proved our point for us.
Mm-hmm. And it's so weird too. Like, yeah, I know there's no stage 4 playoffs, but like we live in a stage right now where Florida Mayhem have a better map differential than teams like New York and Seoul. Like, it's very surreal.
Yeah, like when you look at it, like the top 3 teams, 3 of the top 4 teams coming into this week were Vancouver, New York, and the Spitfire. And in 3 matches, their final 3 matches. So Spitfires, Mayhem, Titans, Justice, Hunters, Excelsior. None of those 3 teams took a map against Mayhem, Justice, Chengdu. That is special, interesting. I don't know. I don't even know how to process this.
Yeah, you know what else is interesting? The fact that I know the Spark haven't played that much this stage, but like they're 0-2 right now. They're basically like last in this current stage at a -5 map differential, and they're in a curious position right now because there is a lot of room for them to drop. Like, there's not a lot of wiggle room for them to secure their spot in the top 6. Now, playing tournament, like, they could feel a little bit better about. But this is a team that could finish anywhere from, like, 6th place to probably 10th at this point. And that's a scary thought, especially when you see so many of these teams starting to emerge and pick up a lot of ground. Like, Guangzhou Charge, Chengdu Hunters have been another team to really make full use of that. Atlanta, this stage in particular as well, with their schedule, can move up quite a bit to get a higher seed on that front. But it's so weird to see when we're talking about like the big 3 teams, which has been kind of like one of the major storylines between Excelsior, Titans, and Shock. The Shock are the only ones who are in like the top 6 for the stage. Like we thought going in that the playing field was going to be kind of evened out, but we were still pretty confident in both the Titans and New York Excelsior, and both of them are kind of like going through different growing pains. Like, so for the Titans, they kind of like abandoned the Hoxel Genji altogether. They did try to bring out Hureg on the Widow, but that was not really working because Corey was kind of a godsend, so to speak. Corey, outside of Hoxel's performance on Genji against the Mayhem, had the single best series I've seen in Overwatch League. It was that dominant of a performance. when Justice 4-0'd the Titans, and it made me shake my head as a Titans fan, knowing that, okay, like, I know we're able to do other stuff, but when you're losing a mirror match that hard, why keep hitting your head against a brick wall at that point? You know, it was very frustrating for me in particular, but I still love to see the Justice put in a performance like that. It's just one of those scenes where, all things considered, it's too little too late, but it's awesome to see, you know, two boys from Philly just coming in and just absolutely crushing two very good Korean DPS. It makes you feel good about the bigger ordeal when the whole East versus West discussion.
Yeah, and it puts into perspective, like, one of the funny things is, on Thursday, after the Justice played the Mayhem, and it went to map 5, and they had to reverse sweep the Florida Mayhem, everyone's like, well, maybe we shouldn't have been so high on the Justice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe, you know, that, like, last week beating Toronto was a fluke. We're still not sold on them. They barely beat the Florida Mayhem, who were bottom of the barrel. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, the Mayhem just 3-0'd the Spitfire next. And then Justice is like, yep, I'm going to 4-0 the Vancouver Titans in an amazing match. And, you know, it sucks that the Justice are playing for nothing. Like, truly, they're playing for nothing, because they can't actually make the top 12, no matter what they do.
Right.
Like, there's a good chance they're going to go undefeated, and there's no stage playoffs. So they can't be last year's Dallas Fuel. Anything like that, they have no way, and they have nothing to play for. Except for, you know, Pride. But Pride doesn't pay the bills. But, you know, and then it's a long off season of, well, what are we gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna keep the tanks that we went 7-0 with in this 2-2-2 Rollock, or are we gonna play the two, you know, new tanks that we signed to be our new starting tanks, but have never played with the team before? You know, Justice are in an interesting scenario, but they definitely look like a top 10 team. You know, the Shock look like the best team probably at this point. Titans, I also don't want to, like, you can't just give up on New York and the Titans at this point. Be like, oh my god, they, you know, got 4-0'd by the Justice. But as much as the Titans, as does Justice have nothing to play for, the Titans really don't have anything to play for. Neither do New York, because their spots are locked in.
Yeah, that being said, though, I will say, the first couple of weeks of a new meta is always, I don't want to say, like, it's super telling, just because you're basically waiting for it to develop and then situate. Now, for a lot of, like, these 6th through 12th ranked teams, this is going to be the particular week that we're going to get the clearest picture of where teams are. Just because, you know, the second week was kind of like the reaction week. And now everyone has this idea, okay, like, May Reaper is at the forefront. So now everyone's going to go into this week knowing that this is what we're going to have to deal with. So this is going to be, we'll see how teams are going to address it this week. So are Titans to come out and only try to run the mirror? Are they going to go back to what was working for them in the past? I don't know, but this is going to give us a better look at all of these teams across the board. But, you know, I don't like running the narrative of, like, well, teams don't really have all that much to play for at this point, but it's also, you know, there's two sides of it. You know, yes, they don't really have that much on the line, and they also don't want to, like, tip their hand, but then you kind of fall into that trap of, like, what we've seen with New York, where we're like, oh, well, maybe they're just slow to adapt to the meta, or maybe they don't want to give us an inkling of an idea of what they're going to run, and then they just still shit the bed. You know?
But not often is it that we get, basically, you know, you have the last stage, and then the stage playoffs has a new meta from the last stage. So, like, from stage 3 to 4, changed meta.
Mm-hmm.
And then from stage 4 to playoffs, the meta will probably change again. So it's like, if you are locked into the top 2 spots and there's nothing that can happen, why not practice other heroes that will be meta? You know what I mean? Like, that will be meta when the playoffs actually start.
Yeah, like, I would be scrimming the hell out of PTR.
Yeah. Like, if I was the Titans and New York, I wouldn't be scrimming anything on the live server. I would just be scrimming on the PTR, because that's what matters, is what the changes are going to be. And that's why I think, like, they're not well versed in the Reaper May team fights and stuff like that, because they're not scrimming those probably. So this is not like, you know, it's not like the sandbagging New York from last year. It's more like they're just preparing for the part that matters the most, and no other teams can really do that because, well, they don't have their stuff locked up. I mean, the Spark, like we talked about the Spark, they're I think in 4th place right now, but they haven't even secured a playoff spot in the top 12.
Right.
Likelihood of them not making it still probably slim to none. Yeah.
It's really low.
Not making it. Yeah. But, like, you know, they're in the top 5 and they don't have it secured. So, like, they have to play what is current meta. And these people don't. They can play the meta that will get them more money when other teams can't practice it. So, it will be interesting to see how, you know, like, we're going to see the first real big test to this in the first match tomorrow.
Absolutely. So, moving into our Week 3 preview, we start off with London Spitfire going up against the Vancouver Titans, both, you know, coming off of pretty monumental losses on both fronts. Honestly, like, going in, I'm going to feel more confident in London than Vancouver at this point, at least in this meta. But I just want to see Axel back on the Genji. Like, I don't want to see them trying to run the mirror. Because I know, like, I wouldn't say, like, all the other teams are playing at the level of, like, the Justice DPS, but it still worries me that it was such a one-sided affair on that front. But these, like, Spitfire are another one of those teams that kind of, like, live and die by their DPS, very similar to what we've seen with the Fusion. But I want to talk about the Sparks week, because, yeah, they've only played 2 games, and they do play 2 games this week. They face New York, and then they face the Chengdu Hunters. That's not going to be an easy week, regardless of what struggles NYXL is going through with their carousel of rotating DPS as they try to figure out who the best option is for their Flex God, because it's not Libero, and it's also not Flower, from what we've seen. So, I don't know what their solution is going to be. I don't think they're going to throw in Pine. I know, like, a lot of fans want to see it, but then, like, there's the fans that know the flexibility isn't quite there for Pine, but then there are other teams that are just like, well, nothing else is working, so what do they have to lose at that point, you know? So that's going to be interesting, but regardless of how Spark have fared against, like, these specific teams, the Hunters are just really coming into their own at this point, and I don't think the Spark at best split the week. With how the Spark have looked, honestly, I would put them like 18th or 19th in the current meta. And they have not shown any signs of, like, subbing in Bazzi at this point. I don't think we're going to see it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it either. Maybe in a desperation attempt, but yeah, the Spark are... I knew they might take a hit. I did not know that they would take this big of a hit. And they have a brutal schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, they play New York and Chengdu this week. They play Dallas next week, but then they also play who was the other one? The Gladiators. And then the week after that, they play Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, realistically, they could go 1-3 in their next, 1-4 actually in their next 5 matches, and it would be shocking, and that would put them probably 10th, 11th place going in, and then they would probably get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. It's just they do not look good.
Yeah, speaking of which, we do have breaking news, as Kesha posted, about Toronto Defiant, and I'll read the tweet here. Our coaches, Optidox, Moby Dick, and Barrow, who was, former Over.GG stats, will take over coaching responsibilities for the remainder of the season. Head coach Bishop has been relieved of duties effective immediately. We thank him for his contributions. Oh man, like...
What did he do?
I like how everyone just, question mark?
Like, let's be real. You're not firing a coach after 2 weeks into the stage when you only have 3 weeks left in the season. And Toronto, if my memory serves me, are nowhere near making the playoffs. So it's like, why fire someone with 3 games left or 3 weeks left? Something had to have happened.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there anything comes from that, whether it's behind the scenes issues or not. So we'll probably dive into that a little bit more. But obviously, any time that there's an adjustment on coaching staffs, there's obviously a little bit of a, I don't want to say a grace period, but it's something that you're going to notice immediately. So we'll see how they're going to split up the coaching duties on that front. So outside of that, Ed, what are some of the other matches in particular that you're looking forward to? Whether it's play in tournament implications, or just teams that are playing up as opposed to what they had been in the past.
All right. Well, first off, the Spitfire Titans match is going to be awesome because honestly, the Spitfire lose this, they're in real danger of being in the play-in games.
Mm-hmm.
They're in 6th place right now, and they could easily get knocked out. So that's an interesting one for me. I think Charge versus New York game is going to be real good, because the Charge are a team that I think are probably, I want to say, not benefiting the most, because that probably goes to the Justice from the 2-2-2 Rollock, but Charge are right up there.
Right. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So this past week, and this is going to correlate to the schedule for this week. Last week we saw the Mayhem put up a better fight against the Justice and the Titans. Do you feel like this is going to be the same case with Uprising putting up a better fight against the Justice than Vancouver this week?
No. Boston's really
it's just a matter of how deep does the rabbit hole go?
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're not. But I think the biggest game of the week from a playoff perspective is the Florida Mayhem versus the LA Valiant.
Yeah, Valiant losing to Dynasty could bite them in the ass.
Yeah. They are, right now, they're 2 games out of being in the top 12.
Mm-hmm.
They lose this, they lose this. Let's see, how many games do the Valiant have left? 3 after this one.
Right.
So just doing simple math, if they lose this and Atlanta, Charge, and the Hunters each win 1, I think that eliminates the Valiant. So this is must win for them.
Yeah, plus I know they still have the Gladiators coming up during that Kit Kat rivalry week.
Yeah, so this is mandatory must win for the Valiant to beat the Mayhem, which before this past week we would have been okay, yeah, that's gonna be
that's a given.
Yeah, and then Mayhem did Mayhem things. So yeah, that's probably the biggest from a playoff perspective. Because the rest of the teams who are below, here's the problem with the teams 13 through 20 or 13 through 18 about trying to get into the playoffs, to the top 12. Your bottom 3 teams right now are 3 of the best teams in the league for this stage. It's Atlanta, Guangzhou, and Chengdu. for anyone else to have a shot, like for Houston to have a shot, they need to win out, and one of those teams has to lose out.
Yeah, I do want to point out, too, with, like, Rain, Charge, and Hunters, teams that have turned it around, those are teams that currently sit 10th, 11th, and 12th overall.
Yeah, so, like, and those are the teams that they have to, like, that if the Outlaws want to get in, or Paris, or Valiant, they need those three teams who are so good to shit the bed just so they have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, looking at all of this, I think this is legitimately what, like, if you look at our final 12, this is what we're going to see. Not in the same order, but these, like, we've kind of come to our final 12. Because I don't see Dallas really doing anything.
Yeah, not in their current state, I don't think.
Yeah, so but the Mayhem Valiant game is probably the biggest.
Yeah, so just taking a quick look at the 7th through 12th ranked teams, there are two teams in particular that actually do have a pretty strong map differential. So I know, like, the Dynasty right now, they sit at 13 wins. They have a plus 14 map differential, which is currently has them in 8th right now. And then you have the Atlanta Reign, who, like, for their wins, they've been pretty decisive. They have 12 wins right now at plus 8 map differential, which is currently 10th. Now, when you compare that to the field, you know, Fusion have a 0 map differential, same with Shanghai. And you have, like, Charge of the Hunters, who were in the negative at this point at -5 and -6, respectively. So, you know, if you're the Dynasty, there's a little bit more wiggle room, but 7th through 12th is all within 2 wins of each other. So, yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but you still need to win your games. So, realistically, the Charge of the Hunters is going to be the spot that's going to be flip-flopping a lot, like 11th and 12th. So, there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position in regards to those particular slots. And, you know, the Fusion could definitely drop a lot as well. So basically, like, if they lose, you know, they could easily drop 2 spots at that point. And depending on how bad, they could be even close to dropping 3 slots. So that's going to be a curious thing to watch. And I know, like, they themselves don't have an easy week. Fusion go up against Paris, who have honestly looked better than what we were anticipating in this current meta. And then they face Vancouver. So it's not going to be an easy week for them, so there's a realistic chance that they're going to drop both games this week, potentially, depending on how their DPS duo is going to do. But, yeah, you know, with Fusion, it's always a coin toss. Like, if EQO and Carpe don't carry that team, they can definitely be in a world of hurt. And when you look at the other DPS on some of these teams that are in the play-in tournament, I don't put as much stock in the wishy-washiness of the Fusion as opposed to, like, Dragons, Rain, Charge, Hunters.
Yeah, I don't do that either. And the Fusion, luckily, barring insaneness from the Valiant and the Fuel, and complete and utter collapse. Like, Fusion would have to go 0-4, and Dallas or Valiant would have to go 4-0, and Dallas would have 4-0, and Dallas would have to win all those maps 4-0 to take over Philadelphia Fusion. Fusion are in the play. Like, for all intents and purposes, they're in the playoffs. I just don't know how they're going to perform. Because the only reason that, like you said, that they're looking any good right now is that, man, their DPS are playing real good. EQO is playing real good. But the rest of their team is just not. Boombox is looking fine. But I still don't like their tank duos. I'm just not sold. I think the Charge are a better team than the Fusion. I think everyone below the Fusion right now 8 through 12, so Seoul, Shanghai, Atlanta, Charge Hunters. I actually think all those teams are better than the Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be interesting to see how quickly they get knocked out of the playoffs.
Do you feel like the Dragons are gonna kind of like reevaluate their approach this week just because they only have one game? Because I know they've been splitting their DPS duos into 2 different pairs. Like, what do you expect to see from them this week in regards to who they're actually fielding?
They're a hard team to judge because like we all thought like they would, they're the darlings. They won last stage, but let's be real, they're 1-2. They lost to Toronto. They're not looking dominant. Really, they have to change something up, and they need a little bit more consistency. Right now they're channeling their inner Seoul dynasty, and they're just throwing people out there and being like, okay, well on this map we'll bring in this player, and then this map we'll bring in these 2 players, and we'll rotate out all the time. We saw Kaguri on stage. Izayaki started the first series, and he was brand new to the team. Then we haven't seen him since, and it's just we don't know what's going on with that team. So we'll see. Maybe they have some more stability this week. I think they were hoping Pharah, Far Mercy was more in the meta, and it's just not. We saw that drop off even more this week. Right. So they're struggling a little, not mightily, but they're struggling a little. So we'll see what happens with them.
And it's weird too. Like I feel like you're still able to kind of like force the Pharah. Like you can just run Pharah Widow with this team. I mean, what's the Reaper going to do? Like, yeah, he might have like position on the point, but he's not really hitting anything outside of the tank line.
Yeah, get your Reaper ultimate off with a Widowmaker just being like easy headshots. Like you're just dead.
Yeah, it's been interesting because the Dragons have just been like Dane has been in there as a primary DPS, and then they've been swapping format like individual games, with Yunjin and DM. Like we're never seeing all 3 of them in the same series so far. So that's what I'm always curious about. Like, okay, is this gonna be a week different just because they only play once? Or are they just gonna stick to running one lineup? I honestly don't know. I am really excited for the Charge week this week. They open up against the Dynasty on Thursday night to close out Thursday. That's gonna be a very interesting one. I think Dynasty were a little fortunate to secure the win against the Valiant this past week, which was actually honestly a pretty huge win for the Dynasty based on how they've been doing. But Charge are a very scary team right now. So they face Seoul, and then they face New York. I don't know how I would necessarily like split the prep time this week with a schedule like that, because both are kind of like top 8 across the board. But this is a team that, regardless of what the schedule is, I honestly would not be surprised to see the Charge go 2-0 in this meta. Like, they look that dominant. Nero has been a standout. And, outside of, like, Corey, he's been honestly putting up some of the more dominant performances this year. And I just love seeing that on such a mixed roster, and it makes me feel really good that the Charge have put so much stock in trying to grab fan bases across the globe as opposed to primarily just running in the Chinese area. So I love seeing that. So seeing Nero like just pop off and really just been a sniper on May just warms my heart.
Yeah, Nero has been insane. We're really kind of starting to see the emergence of a true carry player. There in GOATs there weren't really any one person that could carry the team. There were very good proponents of a team. Like a good Zarya player was awesome.
Yeah, that's why Sinatra wins MVP.
Yeah, but this is the first time that you're just like, okay, they have Nero, they're good. Like, yeah, it's why with the worst tank line in the Overwatch League, the Washington Justice are undefeated this stage, is because Corey. Like Corey, the rest of the team has stepped up their game. But
and Giannis can't hard feed as easily.
Yeah, like, so Corey has been kind of carrying that team. So yeah, it's those two have probably been the biggest beneficiaries of the Rollock.
And honestly, to an extent, like, Guido's been actually performing very well too, which we're not used to seeing either. Like, Sleepy's just Sleepy hasn't been playing at all. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, Guido was not playing bad when he was on Zenyatta in stage 1. But you know, they went out and got Sleepy, and they had to play him because they had to try and do something. They weren't winning anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, Guido's been playing pretty well. Now I'm gonna ask you this: the Houston Outlaws.
Okay.
Are they gonna go winless this week?
Okay, let's see. What is your schedule?
They got Spitfire and the Justice.
Yes.
Okay.
I would favor their opponents in both of those.
So the Outlaws would go what, 1-6 then?
There'd be like 1-5 if I'm not mistaken.
1-5, yeah, because they beat the Gladiators somehow, and they haven't had any other wins.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh man, that team is going to be bad. Yeah, I winless the rest of the way.
I give them a higher probability if they flub substitutions.
Like, at one point, do you try? Because if they lose one map, they're out of the playoffs. Like, one series, they're out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point do they just try and put in the backups? See what they got.
Right.
Like,
I think at that point it would be when they are eliminated.
Yeah.
When they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, why aren't some of these teams... We saw it with the Florida Mayhem this week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they brought in basically the whole second half of their roster for the last map because, you know what? Why not? You got nothing to lose. You got nothing but winning at that point. Like, the best thing you can do is you get to see them on stage. You get to get players on stage. You get to do all that. This is something the Outlaws could do. Now, granted, most of their players have been on stage because they haven't been able to release or sign anyone new. But why not see how things work out with different lineups?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what the Outlaws do.
Yeah, and on that note, speaking of Texas teams, for those that haven't been paying attention to Dallas Fuel, they did say that AKM is expected to see stage time this week. He was out, it's like a family emergency or something like that this past week. So you're not primarily going to be seeing Taimu. Now that being said, Taimu honestly looked pretty good this past week.
Yeah,
I know,
was not bad.
I know, like, fantasy-wise, in that series for Dallas, like, actually had like 3 of like the top like 15 point totals for the week, which was you never expect to see. But unfortunately, like, it's too little, too late for the Fuel. Like, they just need so much help just to sneak into the playoffs. Like, it's a very, very small window, and I can't imagine that even opening to that much expense. But
Yeah.
Taimu's definitely been trying to beat the hard carry for the team, and you know, when he's on, he does look like a very good player. He is... I don't know if I could say, like, he's the most consistent DPS, but there are a lot of, like, hit scan players that kind of, like, fall into that role. Like, honestly, like, Linkser is another primary example. That when he's on, and then when he gets mentally boomed, he just kind of, like, fades away, so to speak.
Okay. Do we see Mickey this week?
I don't think so.
I don't think we're like next week. We could definitely. I think we would for sure see Mickey. because by next week we'll know for sure if they're eliminated. But yeah, I honestly think they should probably stick with Taimu. I just like Taimu has the most. We've been talking about like DPS players being able to hard carry a team. Well, I mean, we know Taimu has done that in the past, and he's probably their best option to do it now.
With their lineup, yeah.
Yeah, with their lineup, he's probably the best option they have if they were to have a hard carry, he would be their best option. But who knows what's going to happen, because,
I do want to point out Bob was asking about Mickey C in stage time. In an actual game, no. He had the Doomfist 1v1 against OGE, which, I mean, to be fair, I think that 1v1 was probably the best one that we've seen this season, which is so weird to say.
As long as we don't get another one of those Tracer 3v3s. That was literally the worst thing I've seen.
Yeah.
They didn't even show the start of it. Like,
right, they're like, oh, we're in.
Somebody died, and they hadn't even shown the match yet. And so it was like, wait, what's going on? Did we start? Yeah, someone's already dead. Like, it was nice try. Don't do it again. Find something else.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like, Fuel. Honestly, the Fuel probably have one of the toughest weeks. They face the Gladiators, and then they have the Shock for their other game. Oof, not looking too hot there. Outside of that, though, like if I would say like I'm if there's a match that I'm more personally invested in, I think Charge Dynasty would probably be my pick of the week across the board. The Shock Dragons game is going to be another really good one. That's going to be another really talented one, because the Shock have just been so consistent. So if the Dragons can calm out and either take that or, take that to a Mat 5, that would be very telling for where the Dragons kind of sit at this point. But I do not expect Mickey to see stage time, at least this week. Now, next week, it's more, all bets are going to be off, like, the training wheels can kind of be off at that point. Maybe we could see some interest in compositions being thrown out there that, maybe we normally wouldn't see, just because at that point, what else do you really have to lose?
Yeah, there's nothing else. Like, they have such a brutal schedule. Like, they still have to play the Charge next week and the Atlanta Reign in the Kit Kat Challenge. And yeah, no, that's not going to be pretty for them. Man, the Valiant, if the Valiant make the playoffs, they will do so in the most epic fashion ever.
And they'll have to beat the Gladiators along the way, too, to make that happen.
No, well, they would probably have to win their last 2 games. And Saturday, they play the Gladiators, last match of the day. And then on Sunday, the last match of the day as well, where they play the San Francisco Shock. So they would have to beat Gladiator Shock to end the season to make the playoffs. That would be pretty epic.
Hey, that's a team, too, that their DPS line, I feel like, has been playing up pretty well. Like, KSF has been another standout, who, last season was kind of a, I don't want to say a joke, but there were a lot of times when I was like, oh, they're bringing KSF in, and then I'm just like, why? Especially when they were playing him on Genji this past season, but he's been really consistent in the role lock, so his stock value has actually gone up quite a bit. So, the Spark are always a curious case, just because, yeah, they're at 14 wins, but, they're only like 4 maps ahead of where the Fusion are at right now. And when you look at the lineup, with the way that team is playing, like, I would not be surprised for them to fall to, like, 8th or 9th when all is said or done, because, really, when you look at the amount of room that they have to work with, there's not a lot of wiggle room for that team in particular, with map differential and then also wins, especially when you factor in how these play-in teams are doing. I don't want to say across the board, but the majority of them or at least half of them have been some of the premier Roadlock teams.
Yeah, like our 5 of our best 6 or 7 teams in this stage are in the bottom 10 in the standings. That's weird. It's weird to think, but it will be interesting. You know, we'll know probably exactly who's going to be in the playoffs. Probably by the end of this week. We won't know the order, but we know who will be the top 12. I think at the end of this week, to like a 99% guarantee. And then we could speculate on what the new meta is going to be for the playoffs.
Double off tank.
And the quick play heroes of the world united and joyous. We can play Diva Roadhog and nobody can say anything to us.
Or it's gonna be like beam heroes only.
So hold on. Outside of Sim, so we got Sim, Zarya.
Moira.
Oh, Moira. Is that it?
Yeah, they're only fielding 3 people.
You get 1 tank, 1 support, and
1 damage.
1 damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sigma is a Sigma. No. I wonder if we will see Sigma in the playoffs.
That's the thing. I feel like a lot of that's gonna be based on how much they've actually been practicing it. But I would not be surprised to see at least one team go all in on it and try to do the Dallas Field Brigida effect, you know?
Yeah. It's like, well, like, I think a lot of people were hoping to see Sigma if Bunker Comp became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Bunker Comp didn't really become a thing. Because his ultimate is like all right, you want to run Bunker? We're going to do this.
Oh, you want to stay in one spot? Here, let me throw you guys all up in the air and then violently crash you down to the ground.
Exactly. So, we'll see what happens. But all I can say is, whatever you expect to happen this week, you're wrong.
Even when you're right,
You're wrong.
you're wrong.
60% of the time, you're wrong every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I learned that from ESPN 8 The Ocho.
Yeah,
Manning.
that math checks out.
Yes. Don't come at me. But yeah, like, nobody's going to be right about anything this week. Like, you know, would if somebody came up to you for this week's schedule and was like, you know what? I think the Dallas Fuel are going to beat the Shock. You'd be like,
You're effing crazy.
but then you're like, okay, you probably would have said the same thing about the Titans losing 4-0 to the Justice. Or the Spitfire losing 3-0 to the Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, nothing is, like, out of, like, left field at this point because everything's in left field.
Yeah, nothing is sacred anymore.
No. Except Haxel's Genji. You know what I really
That's
want
untarnished. What's that?
I want to see Prophet Haxel Genji off in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a lot of fun.
I would love it.
That would be great.
As long as a 1v1 away from the rest of the team.
Yeah, but like they have a gentleman's agreement to meet in the alley at King's Row
Mm-hmm.
and be like, guys, only help us out if we emerge victorious. Don't heal us.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Just, you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna be in this corner. You guys do your thing. We're doing our thing.
And that if someone breaks that agreement, they're disqualified from the match.
Yeah, they have to
That's
give
a
up
loss.
the next point free, no
Mhm.
matter what.
There you go. That's how it has to work.
See, Bob brings up an interesting question, and this is exactly off topic, like I like to do. When packing, what is the proper way to pack a sword? Bubble wrap, I feel, is not the best because swords cut through plastic fairly easily. But what you could do is I would wrap it in a blanket and then bubble wrap it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to cut through the fabric. Use like a towel, a clean towel, or a blanket, or something like that. Wrap it in that, then bubble wrap it. Then it's double safe.
Yeah. Then tape it.
Yeah, and then you can be like, this is like I have a homemade Nerf sword. So see, problem solved.
See, the thing for me is like, what are you bringing the sword for?
Well, he's packing because he's moving.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's moving. Like I would just laugh at like if he's just taking it randomly.
The
someplace
thing
else.
you got to be tricky about though, Bob, is you have to make sure the towel is long enough. You don't want the edge just sticking out because somebody's not going to realize it and then put their hand like to pick it up. And next thing you know, you have a sword through the hand, and people are pissed off, and then you get sued. So make sure you put some on the end of it too.
There you
The
go.
more you know.
And that's how you pack a sword.
Yeah, that's
Things
how
you
pack a
probably
sword.
didn't expect to learn on our podcast today.
But then you're like, oh, Ed's talking. It makes sense. He went off topic. Weird. It's
Yep.
what I do.
Yeah.
So.
That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But with that being said, guys, now that we have solved that problem for Blazing Bob, let's go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a positive review over on iTunes. We do also, look for reviews on the other sites, but iTunes is definitely the go-to, just because that one gets, well, for one, that's more readily available for a lot of people. Plus, helps our search results, all of that good stuff. So any sort of feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed. That will offer us insight on how we can make for a better show for you guys. Now, if you would like to find additional content for Overwatch specifically, of course, you got to check out Overwatch Recall. We have a podcast directory for Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League over on our website. And then every Sunday, we do have the weekly recall where we post an episodic listing of all the prior week stuff. So definitely go check that out on Twitter at OW Recall. Now, if you guys would like to support our podcast network, you can do so a couple of different ways. Since we do stream quite a bit on Twitch, you can consider throwing us your Twitch Prime subs, which cost you absolutely nothing. Normal subs are good too on Twitch. And of course, we do have our Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So more information on that can be found at patreon.com/OWL Network. So you too could join the likes of all our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabal, Owl, and Keshin, helping our network grow. So we want to thank you guys again for all of your continued support. But Ed, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can reach us over on the different platforms.
All right. So you can reach us through email at hdoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, so you can come over there and follow us at H&D Overwatch. Unless you're in China, then you're shit out of luck. We do have a website where Spider posted his first article a couple days ago at owlnshow.com, so definitely go over there, check it out. We do have a YouTube channel where we sometimes put we put all our shows, our power rankings, and stuff like that. YouTube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, so come over there in Discord at discord.me/OWLnshow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/OWLnshow. We are Twitch affiliates, so come help support the show by subscribing to our channel with that awesome Amazon Prime, subscription, and earn our network emoticon. We do, like Tom said, stream pretty regularly. So Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network between Totem and Spider. On Tuesdays, we have OWL by the numbers. That's me, Totem, Bob, the loser Ramses, and one of these days we're just going to be we're going to have the pre-show live, and it's not going to be part of the podcast. So you'll need to tune in just to hear the pre-show shenanigans we all get into.
And see how long I have to wait to actually start the show.
Oh yeah, because we're just telling stories. I think we postponed it by at least a good 10 minutes yesterday.
And there's been times when it's been longer than that.
And
then the tech issues happen on my end, and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, because me and Bob are not talkers. We don't do that often. You can't just get us going and start talking. It's not what we do. And then on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have this show you're listening to, is Heroes Never Die. Then we have our host stream when available, run on a flex schedule. They tend to be Monday nights and Thursday nights. Mondays before Overwatch League Network with Totem, Thursdays with Spider, where he gets 97% kill participation with Drake.
Not always, but it has happened.
But that was an awesome... I was in the game with him, and it popped up. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a kill participation that high for a full series. So that was pretty cool. So definitely come check us out. As Totem said, we do have the Patreon, patreon.com/MLW Network. So definitely come over there and check us out. And you can contact me personally on Twitter at EdinarOverwatch. Again, unless you're in China, then you're shit out of luck.
Then you can email us.
Where can they find you? Yeah, you can email us. Wait, do they get Gmail over there?
That's a good question.
I'm going to go with no.
We need a Chinese representative.
While you do your Twitter stuff, I'm going to see if China allows Google.
Okay. You can find me over on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. With that being said, guys, we are going to close it out for tonight. So again, you've been... What's that?
You can't... Gmail is banned in China.
It's banned? Man.
Man, how are these... Alright. So, yeah, YouTube is banned in China. Google services, Facebook, and Twitter are all banned in China.
Okay.
So
this complete...
anything.
This is why the population is so big, because they have nothing better to do.
You'll be like, oh, I wish I could watch videos of kitty cats and weird random stuff all day. What am I gonna do? I don't know. Make babies?
that's what it is.
Like that is exactly how it happened.
Yep.
You know, it's not like they were very high in populace before the internet.
No.
It was only after.
Post-internet.
Post-internet, that's when the population of China really skyrocketed.
Well, I'm glad we solved that one, too. But again...
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. You guys have been listening to Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 172. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar. And we'll see you guys back tomorrow night, probably, for our host stream. But for now, I'm going to throw things over to N-Boss, because I know he's streaming right now. So we're going to go raid him, go show him some love, and we'll see you guys next time, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.